Welcome to the Eclectic Philatelist. This is episode number 14, New Issues for the Collector and for Everyday Use. My name is Joseph. Glad you're here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some new issues, a couple of items that will be going into my collection, and a couple of items that I'm going to be using for everyday mailings, quite possibly or probably for my post-crossing activities. Now, the first one is from the Royal Mail, and this is a collectible item, the Transformers Prestige Booklet. The science fiction series known as the Transformers have been around since the 1980s. There have been comic books and graphic novels and quite a few series of films and cartoons, and some of the films are full-length feature films, and there's still many that are made quite new films that are out for this quite old franchise. It's been around for a long time. The characters, some of the characters like Optimus Prime have been around for a very long time. Some of the characters are a little bit newer in the franchise. For any collector of science fiction, especially science fiction related to possibly films, and to collectors and people who are fascinated with the Transformers themselves, the Royal Mail has a very nice new issue. Now, the new issue comes in many different formats. The format that I purchased and was recently delivered is the Royal Mail Prestige Stamp Booklet. And this booklet's pretty nice. It has all of the stamps that are part of this issue, but it also has a lot of other information, as you can see on some of the photos I'll put up on the screen. It talks about the characters in the franchise. It talks about the stamps. It talks a little bit about the history of the characters. It even gets into a little bit of the artists that drew the characters for these stamps, which is pretty nice to give credit to the people that did the pencil drawings and then the pen and ink and the colorization of these graphics. The stamps are pretty nice too. The booklet is kind of unusual in the fact that it has a lot of information about the Transformers and about the stamps both, but also in the back there's the first of a few kind of hidden features in this stamp booklet. In the back there's a code or a cryptographic puzzle that you can solve by going through the booklet and finding the clues and then using this back page in the booklet to solve the hidden message. Also, there are hidden symbols throughout the stamp booklet that are made visible by the use of ultraviolet light. And if you happen to be in Great Britain, where you can get the Royal Mail app for your phone, you can scan the stamps, and in the app it will display a short video about that particular Transformers character. Unfortunately, in the US, the App Store doesn't have the Royal Mail app available, but it's a pretty neat thing. I think this is a great collector's item. The Royal Mail also has available, of course, other variations of this set for the Transformers. You can get sheets of stamps and individual stamps, of course, and there are more elaborate booklets than the Prestige booklet that I purchased. So this is going into my collection for part of the sci-fi collection, and I recommend it for anyone that's into science fiction characters or just the Transformers themselves. The next item, the next new issue, is from the United Nations Postal Administration, and they recently issued a special event sheet commemorating World Chess Day. And World Chess Day is celebrated annually on the 20th of July. Well, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed this day to mark the date of the establishment of the International Chess Federation in Paris in 1924. And the United Nations recognizes the sport, arts, and physical activities that have the power to change perceptions, prejudices, and behaviors, as well as to inspire people, break down racial and political barriers, combat discrimination, and diffuse conflict thus contributing to the promotion of education, development, peace, cooperation, etc. And chess is an ancient intellectual and cultural game. It encompasses elements of sports, science, and art. It's an affordable and an inclusive activity. It can be played anywhere and by all, across all barriers of language, age, gender, physical ability, and social status. Well, the UNPA on July 20th of 2022 issued the special event sheet. It has 10 stamps, and it was issued for the Vienna office in the denomination of €1. The sheet is large. It's 40.6 millimeters by 29.8 millimeters for the stamps, and the overall size of the sheet itself is 279.4 millimeters by 215.9 millimeters. Now you can get this sheet from the United Nations Postal Administration. I'll add a link to this here in the video. I like this sheet a lot. It's going to go into my collection. One of my main topical collections is chess on stamps. And I really like this one because it has a lot of variety in the graphics. It shows just chess pieces, a hand making a move, pieces on the board, etc., as well as having the United Nations emblem on the stamps here. So this is another new issue if you're into chess on stamps, which is quite a popular topic. I'd suggest checking out the United Nations Postal Administration and checking out this special event sheet for World Chess Day, 20th of July, 2022. One of the other new issues I recently purchased is not really for any of my collections. It's more going to be for everyday use. And the first of two series of stamps from the United States Postal Service has to do with the James Webb Space Telescope. And that's been a pretty popular topic. If you've followed space or science information on Facebook, for example, or even stamps on space, topic that has been floating around the web lately, you'll see a lot of information and a lot of photographs from the new James Webb Space Telescope. Well, the U.S. Postal Service issued new forever stamps depicting the James Webb Space Telescope. It's the largest and most sensitive telescope ever deployed in space. It's capable of peering directly into the early cosmos, into the limits of the known universe. It was launched December 25th in 2021, and the Webb now orbits the Sun about 1 million miles away from Earth. The image on the stamp is an artist's digitally created depiction of the telescope against a dazzling starscape. Webb's 18 gold-coated mirror segments, hexagons that combine to form its 21-foot-wide primary mirror, can pick up faint heat waves representing the universe's first accessible starlight from billions of light years away. The secondary mirror, supported by 3 struts, is opposite the primary mirror. Below are Webb's solar shield, the computers, the control machinery, and the solar array that provides power to the system. The salvage of this stamp image is an image of a star in a distant space that was taken by Webb early on in its mission. So it was used to confirm the perfect alignment of the telescope's 18 mirror segments. As Webb continues to go in its orbit, Webb will provide views of the universe in its infancy, including galaxies during their formation. The telescope may identify planets with conditions that are advantageous for supporting life as we know it. The Webb telescope represents a multinational cooperation of NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency. The overall development was led and managed by NASA. Art director Derry Noyes was the designer for the stamp project, using existing art by James Vaughn and an image that was provided by NASA. The James Webb Space Telescope stamp is being issued as a forever stamp in panes of 20. Now, this stamp is one that I'm going to use in everyday mail. I'm an avid post crosser also, And I like creating different postcards that are of interest to the people I'm sending the cards to. And I often like to include stamps that are new issues combined with stamps that are old issues, as long as they add up to the current rate, whether it's domestic or international. So I thought this would be a great stamp to include on many post-crossing cards in my mailings in the future. Again, this is available from the USPS rather. So if you're into space or any of that type of scientific exploration, things like that, highly recommend this new Forever stamp from the United States Postal Service. The next stamp is also an issue from the United States Postal Service, part of their new issues. And again, this is one that I'm not going to really put in my collection per se, although I might buy another sheet of the stamps to add to a collection or to save for future collecting purposes. But again, with my previous James Webb stamps, I said I'm going to be using those for post-crossing on postcards, and these stamps I'm also going to be using in daily mail and for post-crossing. And this sheet is the Pete Seeger issue. Now, Pete Seeger was a musician. He was born in 1919, passed away in 2014, and he appears on this new stamp in the USPS series of music icons. A generation of fans really regard him as not just a folk singer, but as kind of a folk hero. The stamp does feature a color-tinted black and white photograph that was taken in the early 1960s by Dan Seeger, the performer's son. Pete Seeger is shown in profile, singing and playing his iconic banjo. The stamp sleeve, which is kind of neat, or the stamp pane rather, is designed to resemble a vintage 45 RPM record sleeve. And I really like that idea. It looks amazing to me as a person who also collects record albums. I kind of like that image. One side of the pane includes the 16 stamps, the image of a sliver of a record seeming to peek out of the top of the sleeve, and a short bit of text. On the reverse is a larger version of the stamp art photograph, the words Pete Seeger folk singer, and the logo for the Music Icons series. Now, Pete was born in New York to musician parents. He took up just about any musical instrument that was within his reach, and rural Southern folk music that he heard during his early family travels and five-string banjo music would kind of define his very long career. Now, during the Great Depression, he roamed America seeking regional music, and on his travels, he met Woody Guthrie, who became sort of a mentor. They organized the Almanac Singers, and they promoted with song labor unions, patriotic songs as the war loomed. And after World War II, Pete Seeger formed a quartet called the Weavers, whose first record, Goodnight Irene, was the #1 song in 1950. He also popularized various folk songs, such as Michael Row the Boat Ashore, and obscure imported gems such as Weem Away. His own compositions, such as If I Had a Hammer, had folk themes and were infused with sing-along catchiness. As adapted by Seeger, We Shall Overcome became a civil rights movement's anthem. Recorded by many other artists, Pete Seeger composed his included Turn, 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 and Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Raising his family in Beacon, New York, in a log cabin they built on a mountainside overlooking the Hudson River, Seeger became alarmed by its intensifying water pollution. So he spearheaded efforts to build a tall-masted wooden boat like those of past centuries, and the sloop Clearwater is still the working centerpiece of an environmental program and a model for other programs worldwide. Stamp project was designed by art director Antonio Alcala. Dan Seeger's photograph was color tinted by Kirsten Montiel. It is a forever stamp. So we've taken a look at a couple of collectible items. The first one was the Transformers booklet. Again, this was the Prestige booklet. It's available from the Royal Mail. And the other one was from the United Nations Postal Administration, and that was the sheet celebrating World Chess Day 2022. Also, we looked at a couple of United States Postal Service issues that I call my everyday stamps, because I will be using these on everyday mail and for post crossing to send cards out to all my fellow post crossers. And those two stamps from the USPS included the Pete Seeger album, picture of Pete Seeger playing his banjo, and also the James Webb telescope, which I think is a fantastic issue for anybody interested in space exploration as a topical collection, or to just use like I'm going to on everyday stamps. Now, speaking of everyday use, put a little plug in here for Postcrossing. If you're not a postcrosser, please check it out at postcrossing.com. Also remember that October 1st is World Postcard Day. So on October 1st, if you can send postcards out to friends, family, and viewers of your YouTube channel, or anyone else out there, it's a great thing to do, kind of promoting the use of postcards to communicate with people around the world. I do have my official postcards for World Postcard Day 2022, and I'll be sending those out on October 1st. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel. And as always, happy collecting.